Hello and a warm welcome to The Point. Aviation sector in India has thrown up many challenges. So far, it's been a story of bleeding losses, mounting traffic, outpacing infrastructure development, pending policy decisions, and also the legislations. But the Modi government has entrusted the task of plugging the holes of aviation sector to a TDP leader who is also a man who belongs to a family of Maharajas. I welcome the Minister for Civil Aviation, Ashok Gajapathi Raju, onto The Point. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Let me begin by asking you, Mr. Raju, about the latest marriage of Air India with the Star Alliance Group. Of course, Air India has cleared so many core values and then it has achieved this status. But the passengers who've been used to the services of carriers like Lufthansa, then Air Canada, how is Air India really going to match up with the services, as far as the services are concerned?
You see, the 27 airlines worldwide form the Star Alliance. Recently, they've taken Air India on board. Brings pressure on Air India on performance.
Right.
The advantages are that Air India passengers get a better destinations and worldwide. It's the biggest alliance in the world. So the pressure now is on Air India to perform. So that they've chosen that line. I think it's a step in the right direction. And I guess they'll behave like a responsible airline. And their passengers will have seamless travel to a large number of destinations. Passenger satisfaction will go up.
Right. This marriage has taken place, but there are so many rumors about the kind of exit route probably which the Star Alliance is looking for, looking at the fact, given the way how things are being coordinated right now. I don't know if it is right, but how far is it true? I mean, these are rumors, or is there any substance in what we are hearing?
You see, the day of marriages takes place, you don't fix the date of divorce. So we hope that they will function as a responsible airline.
Now coming to the Air India's revival plans, we've seen a huge amount of taxpayers' money has already gone into this airline to keep it afloat. How are you really thinking of reviving this airline, basically?
This airline has been, some of us feel, pushed to financial troubles. Now, their own plans, turnaround plan, financial reconstruction plan, these have all gone into tailspins of sorts, because certain assumptions went when these plans were formulated. The cost of fuel, for instance, the cost of the dollar vis-a-vis the rupee. So these are major problems which have pushed its finances into deeper troubles.
Right. We will talk about these problems a little later, sir, but why I asked you this question was that Modi government has time and again been speaking about the privatization revenues to, cut in the yawning fiscal deficit which is really seen. So is privatization of Air India anywhere on the anvil?
You see, as of now, no decisions have been taken. A lot of debate going on, whether Air India should be privatized, should not be privatized. But Air India has been going around doing its work, which is necessary. It has also exhibited a continued, what you call, social commitment. Recently, Iraq, say, in the evacuation of Indian citizens from Iraq, like that, it has been public sector, certain social commitments have been demanded of it, and it has been performing.
Social commitments is fine as far as you're giving examples of Iraq, but in terms of revenue, across the world we have seen that national airlines always have a market share of about 40 to 45%, and the countries are mandatorily ensuring that the national airline maintains this kind of a market share. But according to you, you've been in the government for last almost a month and a half. What is your assessment? Why has the market share of Air India gone down?
You see, Air India has been sliding. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
Probably certain decisions which were forced on Air India.
What kind of decisions like? For example?
Like in Parliament, we face questions.
Okay.
So similar to the allegations that have come out there. It has been pushed to in the sense that buying and selling of aircraft, say for instance. This doesn't appear to have been done with a commercial plan in mind.
Okay. So when you say that the commercial plan was not in mind, do you also indirectly point out at the fact that there was too much of intervention from the bureaucracy side?
You see, whatever interventions from outside Air India or decisions taken do not appear to be in the airline's interest or in the interest of aviation.
Okay.
So anyway, these are debatable things.
No, but sir, given the fact that you are pinpointedly saying that the commercial angle was not in mind, so basically you've got the pulse of the problem. But now as a minister, what is your immediate plan? How do you try to rejuvenate this airline then?
You see, this airline...
Maybe as step number one.
You see, as step number one, they've already landed up with the Star Alliance.
Okay, okay.
Now, the next would be if we are able to address ourselves to this aviation costs.
Okay.
Aviation turbine fuel.
Right.
Because in our country, it's very high. It's not only impacting Air India, it's also the other airlines.
But when you talk about the aviation turbine fuel, many layers of costs are added to it, one at the refinery level, then one at the state level. I know a lot of representations have come to you as far as reviewing the decision on the ATF pricing is concerned. Are you going to talk on behalf of the industry to the state governments so that they can cut down on the levies?
We wanted to interact with our own tourism department, Government of India, aviation, tourism and aviation concerns with all state governments.
But how does that coordinate the problem of pricing?
You see, throw up what we feel, besides not only being useful to them in connecting destinations, keeping tourism promotion in mind, you also address your own problems also.
Okay.
So, some of them might respond, some of them might not respond. But whatever it is, you keep working on it.
Are you not very smartly hinting at the competitive federalism angle of Modi when you bring up the pricing of
Obviously,
ATF?
Obviously.
Okay.
You see, now if Government of India takes arbitrary decisions, state governments are going to definitely ask for compensation. For what they feel where the loss is imaginary and real.
So which means that competitive federalism will decide on the pricing of the ATF?
Might be, as of today.
Okay, that's a big news point you've given us.
But there is another angle to it.
Okay.
There's a section of the economic activities demanding it to be brought in as a declared good.
Okay, so what does it mean? If it's a declared good?
It means that Government of India declares the rate and it comes under that. So, will Government of India declare it? I would say the best alternative is for the states to respond because they also benefit by aviation.
So, are we going to see any kind of a policy announcement on this, or are you just going to maybe encourage the states?
You see certain facts that are well known. Do you really need a policy announced on everything?
Okay.
Huh? I don't think a family to brush its own teeth announces a policy that every member of the family should take a toothbrush in the morning and go to the base and brush your teeth. It's obvious. Dental hygiene is obvious.
Right, but which means you're going to indirectly or maybe obliquely talk to the state governments?
We have to talk.
Right.
We have to talk. We have to understand.
And has that dialogue process begun?
Oh yeah, meeting. We are trying to fix up a date for interaction.
Right.
We're going ahead. Because they also have certain concerns.
So you've given us a very big news point that competitive federalism could be the cornerstone for the pricing on ATF. But I'll have to take a break here. When we come back, we talk about the FDI in aviation and many other factors which are ailing the aviation sector. Back in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching To The Point with Minister for Civil Aviation, Ashok Gajapathi Raju. So before I go on to the question of FDI in aviation, let me ask you a question, which is a kind of a very basic question. In the past, we've seen that aviation has been a ministry which has been handed over mostly to the allies, especially when it comes to placating the political fancies, making adjustments of the coalition government, and which is why more or less it has been seen as not being the center of interest for any government. At least in the last 2 tenures for UPA, we've seen that. How will you ensure that from the TDP, how will you ensure that the name of TDP does not go down in the history as what has been judged for aviation so far?
You see, when history is going to be written, none of us are going to be around. So I think we should keep that out of mind.
Okay.
What we do should be, at least in our minds, the right thing. You've done this because you feel it's right, it's going to contribute to the Indian economy, and it has its place.
No, but why I asked you this question was that aviation has not been a priority of the government. At least that's what it looked like. It has looked like in the past.
You see, priority of governments, lots of things, because probably you might be correct in a way. Most Indians travel by train. Right. They do not travel by air. But air travel is no longer elitist.
Right.
Lot more common people traveling. Because we are a vast country. Right. And a lot of people look at this sector as a sector which will promote other economic activity.
But the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Transport also had hinted to the fact that aviation should be a part of the integrated transport policy. Are you looking in that direction basically now?
You see, if you have to look in that direction, because for one reason, from your airport, say you get down from the aircraft, then you have to get onto the road,
right,
or get into a train. No. So this is as much as transport is, the aviation is also transport.
But this talk has been going on since 2005 of how to make aviation, how to integrate aviation into the integrated transport policy system, but it has not happened. So how hopeful are you presently of actually bringing this dream into a fruition?
It cannot be a standalone. How long will it be a standalone? Okay. Just cannot be. It cannot survive that way.
So have you begun to take the baby steps in this direction at least?
You see, it is part of transportation. Okay. Probably aviation in India, the cargo sector is practically zero. Right. So it might have a potential there.
But when you're talking about things like cargo and you're talking about the mounting air traffic, infrastructure development is a very big issue. Recently, you had spoken about the fact how you are thinking of developing, incentivizing the private players to bring in airlines into the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. In what direction has this process begun actually?
You see, tier 2 and tier 3 cities have to be connected.
Right.
Connectivity is important. Most of our members of parliament, either in the Rajya Sabha or in the Lok Sabha, the issues raised is more to do with connectivity.
Right. I have spoken to a number of people in the industry and who are already saying that, the option is not very viable. Why do they say that?
You see, the existing investment, one has to see that its returns become optimal.
Right.
Then your fresh investment is required. Lots of people talk about, you see, imagine it. You have to, like tourism, for instance, you have to imagine your programs.
Right.
Like the other day, the Prime Minister did a review.
Right.
And aviation was rightly brought in along with the transport.
Coming to the FDI decision, the Arvind Mayaram panel which was formed, it had spoken about raising the FDI cap from 49% to 74%. Is the current government thinking of raising the cap of the FDI?
See, nobody has decided anything, but till a decision comes, it remains 49%.
But what about the development of the greenfield airports then?
Greenfield airports, the ones that have come in our country, there are 3 as of now.
Okay.
Hyderabad, Bangalore and Kochi, I think. And Hyderabad and Bangalore appear to be reasonably successful experiments.
Coming to another pending policy decision, and that is the 520 norm, which everybody is talking about. I know already you are smiling on that. Are you going to really relax the 520 norm? Are you going to allow the carriers without the 5 years experience and who have a fleet of 20 aircrafts? Are we going to see some kind of a relaxation on that now?
You see, any regulation should have a reasoning.
So, which means you are saying that the regulation...
Regulation...
Because during the UPA tenure, this was almost a done deal. They were waiting for a sign-off when this happened.
You see, any regulation has to have a reasoning. Why is that regulation? Why put there?
So, you are hinting at the fact that you will not go ahead with this decision, with the regulation.
Now, nobody has been able to explain to me as to why that regulation is there.
Okay.
If you want to explain, you're welcome. I'm willing to listen.
No, because
I'm all ears.
Why it's mesmerizing is because UPA was on the verge of finality. They were just waiting for a sign-off, and now a new government comes in, and you're saying that it doesn't have a logic. So
what
obviously,
is the logic? I haven't heard of any other country in the world that has that type of a regulation.
Okay. So you mean to say that it's not practiced anywhere in the world, so you will not go ahead with that? 520
What is the reason for having it there?
Okay. So you don't want to say directly?
No one in the airlines has been able to explain this.
Okay.
I'm looking for an explanation outside the airline. Okay. And if I have to support anything, I have to know what I'm supporting.
So, which means that I am to understand that there's going to be no decision as of now on the 520 norm, so we should just stop talking about it.
We have not taken any decisions yet. But if I have to support something, I have to know what I'm supporting.
Okay, okay. So I'll leave it there for some other day when probably you are able to find answers on that norm. But talking about, coming back to, in fact, Air India again, Justice Dharmadhikari's report has spoken time and again about the human resource issues like the salary packages, the incentives of the employees. And legal battle, the entire case is still embroiled in a legal battle. Are you looking at ways and means to solve this problem? Because obviously you cannot go ahead with a successful airline as long as your employees and your staff are a disgruntled lot.
You see, if there's a fight within any organization, that organization suffers.
Okay.
So it should be the endeavor of the organization to work as a team. That should be the endeavor, and we will try to see that they work as a team.
But sir, what is most astonishing is that post-liberalization, when the aviation sector was liberalized, instead of mounting profits, we've seen mounting losses. Where has the decision gone wrong? Have there been problems as far as the policies are concerned, or has there been problems on the operational part? Has there been problems with as far as the governments are concerned? How do you really assess the problem of the aviation sector?
See, the aviation sector, my feeling is it has never neared its potential.
Okay.
It has a lot of potential. In a big country like ours, where connectivity is quite low, it has a different type of potential.
Okay.
Now, how do you harness those potentials? How do you get professionalism into the system and decision-making process work with the organization in mind, with the airline in mind?
But so when you're talking about the problems, isn't Air India the biggest headache for the aviation at the moment? How would you call it? Or rather, I would put it the other way, not a headache, but the biggest challenge for the aviation ministry at the moment.
I would prefer the word challenge to headache.
Right, which is why I corrected myself.
But probably a challenge bordering on the headache or something like that. But right or wrong, in aviation, Air India cannot be just wished away. It forms a considerable size in the sector.
Right.
And cannot be just wished away.
But
it has to be worked with.
But sir, one problem which I have never read in the papers, and one problem which people have just not been talking about, is the industrial relations department of the aviation sector. There are employees who are getting fat pay packets, and they are supposed to resolve the pending cases, the mounting number of cases which have mounted day by day. Are you really going to hold those people accountable as to what are the reasons why the cases have just gone up and they've been unable to resolve the cases?
You see, it is necessary that they all work in harmony.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're not going to achieve anything.
Okay.
Now, in that direction, if steps have not been taken anywhere, we will have to suggest to those people involved that they have to take those steps.
Okay.
And they have to perform.
So,
because if you do not perform...
So, are you going to give them a message of perform or perish?
You see, I would say perform. I won't say or perish. Because
no,
that
in
or
terms of
perish...
timeline, supposing if they are unable to perform.
There's a difference, because if you use the word or perish, chances are you get unwanted reactions.
Okay. Okay.
Because if they do not perform, they will perish anyway. But there's no need to tell them that. We would wish that they perform, turn around, come, serve the Indian citizens, and become economically so strong as to contribute to the economy of the country.
Which
now,
means
this
you
is
will
what
ensure,
we would like.
So are you going to be flogging them time and again to just bring them on the table that, look, boss, you've got to perform and you don't have any other option?
See, the days of flogging are long over.
No, flogging as in... Okay, but
so you don't really have to flog anyone. Okay. You would probably flag the issues.
Okay, so you flag the issues.
Put it before them,
okay,
and hope that they will respond as responsible Indian citizens.
Right. Two quick questions before I wind up the show, and both are related to Air India. Question number one is that Air India, it looks, has not got the priority the way it should have been given in the past. Now, when you talk about transatlantic flights landing into India, I'll just give you quick examples of how they don't get priority and the pilots keep sorting in the air. Then Air India is another flight. I'm talking about the international flights, how they have not got exit routes when you compare them with the foreign airlines like Etihad, which is about 11 exit points, Qatar, which has about 13 exit points. Are you going to give that kind of a priority to Air India?
You see, now there are more Indian destinations than so many other countries. The airlines representing those countries that you have mentioned hardly have any domestic destinations and things like that. Now, between the governments, there have been agreements that have come about, what we call the bilaterals.
Okay.
The seats.
Right.
So you can fly so many X number of seats into their country. They can fly X number of seats from our country into their country and things like that. Now they are able to perform on the agreements. Okay. And the Indian players, private and public sector, are not able to perform.
Okay.
So what is happening in effect? The Indian business has gone to them. Okay. So you would like your players not to be sitting on permission.
So obviously that's another task, a big task which is ahead of you. How to ensure
we don't want them to sit on permissions. Okay. We want them to perform on this permission.
One last question now. There are reports that Air India's mascot, which is a Maharaja, that is getting replaced with a symbol which is going to be emblematic of a common man. What is the real symbol which is in your mind?
The Maharaja was a time when Air India got it as a mascot.
Okay.
Aviation was elitist and it was considered a luxury.
Right.
And even in those luxurious things, they took care that the Maharaja welcomed his guests, but did not ride on them. So at no point of time was it ever thought that the Maharaja should be breaking the backs of...
But has its symbol been designed?
In no point of time was it ever thought of that the Maharaja should be riding on the citizens.
No, but I'm talking about the new symbol which is in mind of the Modi government. Have you begun with the designing process? Have you thought of what symbol is it going to be?
The question to me, it's a non-issue.
Okay.
The symbol is a non-issue.
Okay.
The work is the issue.
Okay.
Huh? Now, let us address ourselves to the work and let us see how the Maharaja symbol modifies itself.
That's a very good note to end the program, but you don't have a road which is full of roses. You have many, many thorns, Mr. Raju. But thanks for answering all my questions like a Maharaja.
Thank
you
you
very much for coming on To The Point.
Thank you.
That's all we have for you on this episode of To The Point. See you next time. Goodbye and thanks for watching.